I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but an eternity is in it. I'm honored to be here. I watched the news one night and saw a young man's story. He had lost his job out in California. His wife had lost her job maybe a month earlier. And the only thing he could think of with all the gloom and doom that was in the television and the media, the only thing this poor man could think to do was go home, take a gun, shoot his wife, shoot his 5 babies, then shoot himself. And the reason because there was so much bad news in the press. We've heard how this is a tough economy, it's not going to get better, things are terrible, things are horrible. And if you hear that enough, you start to believe it and buy into it. And so I screamed at the television when I saw it, no, you don't have to do that. This is a tough time, yes, but wherever there's an adversity, there's always the seed for opportunity. And if you can start to look at adversity from a new set of eyes, you'll see that if you think different, you can turn your adversity into million-dollar ideas and an opportunity that will literally change the world. So I just decided to write a book, turn setbacks into greenbacks. I interviewed lots of successful people who had built their companies out of tough times. And it was out of that I found there were some secrets and some principles and strategies that will help people to survive and thrive in the midst of tough, challenging times. Is if you don't see where you fit in the future, and many of these young kids here, you've heard some of them say, I don't expect to live to 25 years old. You've heard them say that. I've been to schools say, what are your goals and dreams? Well, man, I don't have no goals and dreams because I don't expect to make it to 25 or 30 years old. Well, if you don't see where you fit in the future, if you don't have a vision where you fit in the future, then you will start to act like a misfit, behave like a misfit, and perform like a misfit. And that is what is happening with many of our young people. They don't have a vision. So what we have to do is help them to understand that tough times don't last. Tough people do. And have to also help them understand that where you are now is not a precursor to where you can be. Your present has very little to do with your future unless you buy in to your present circumstances and situations. The fact that you must stay away from the dream busters. The dream busters are number one, drugs and things that will keep you from maximizing your potential. Number two, dream busters, hanging out with negative people who will tell you what's not possible for your life. And the number 3 dream buster is not pursuing academic excellence or excellence in anything that you're pursuing. Whatever you're doing in life, I encourage people to pursue excellence because excellence is always the best job security. I think my mother was a hero for me. And then over the years, I've had so many mentors, like a Harold Bell, like a Joseph Daniel Clipper and his cousin Milt Clipper, who supported me when I was trying to figure myself out. I've had Les Brown has been a mentor and someone who believed in me. People who just poured into me without any expectation of anything in return. And I believe that's what we have to start to do. We have to give without expecting anything in return. And when you do that, your blessings come from places you don't anticipate or don't experience. You say, why did this happen to me? Well, you gave over there, but a bigger blessing came from over here. And I think that's what we must do. We understand that as you give, so shall it be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, overflowing. And I learned that once you make up your mind to be a giver, life starts to give to you. Once you make up your mind to be enthusiastic, life starts to be enthusiastic to you. So I really make a commitment that every day I get up and I'm grateful. As we've talked about Dr. Mays and the impact he had, you know, I tell in my book, 2 of my books, I talk about the story of Dr. Mays and the impact he had on Martin Luther King Jr. And the story goes like this. A hot summer day, the year was 1944, the campus of Morehouse College. There was a knock on the door on this sweltering hot day. Dr. Mays at his desk, the venerable dignified gentleman was sitting there on his sweltering day, dabbing the perspiration from his brow. And the door knocked loud. He said, "Come in." The big wooden door swung open. And in the doorway is a man and a teenage boy. Dr. Mays jumped to his feet, went to grab the hand of the man, Martin Luther King Sr. He said, "My old friend, come on in." Dr. King stepped in with the teenager and said, "Dr. Mays, I know you're busy. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I just came to introduce you to my son, Marty. We call him Marty, but his real name is ML, or we call him Martin Luther King Jr. And he's 15 years old. He's going to college here in the fall. He's 15 going to college, very bright boy. And he's never given me a stitch of trouble. But I came here today because I need a big favor. I need a really big favor." No, Dr. Mays, I don't need tuition. It's bigger than that. No, I don't need room and board. It's more critical than that. I came to ask you, would you teach my son how to dream big dreams? Would you teach my boy how to dream impossible dreams? And Dr. Mays gave young Marty a piece. He said, "Young man, read this piece every day and it will change your life." And one day I got hold of that piece and I started reading. And I read it every day. And it changed my life. And I put it in my books. And then when I put my first book out, it only takes a minute to change your life. As soon as the book came out, soon thereafter, I started getting emails from people around America. And some months later from people in Australia, New Zealand, and China, and Japan, and Africa, who said, "I read that piece in your book. So profound, yet so simple." It simply reads, "It must be borne in mind that the tragedy of life does not lie in not reaching your goals. No. The tragedy lies in not having a goal to reach for. It is not a calamity to die with your dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. It is not a disaster to be unable to capture your ideals, but it is a disaster to have no ideals to capture. It is not a disgrace not to reach the stars, but it is a disgrace to have no stars to reach for. Not failure, but low aim. That's sin." All right. I recently got licensed as a minister, but that was just the formality for what I've been doing for 27 years. I graduated from Wesley Theological Seminary 27 years ago, and I did not hear the call to pastor, but I heard the call to inspire. And when they offered me a church, I said, I can't take a church because I really don't hear that call in that office. But I do want to inspire people, and I set out to inspire people first as a musician and as a singer and as an entertainer, to inspire people with music. And that led from there, as Harold told, to my experience with being fired and replaced by a karaoke machine. And it was out of that I said, this is not the end of my story. I've had a setback, but a setback is nothing but a setup for a comeback. And it was out of that I started giving little speeches to kids about staying away from drugs. And from the little kids, the teachers would say, "Could you come to my teachers association?" And then someone there would say, "Could you come to my church?" And someone there would say, "Could you come to my company?" And it started to grow. And then Les Brown heard about the fact that I mixed music and motivation and invited me to be on tour with him and Gladys Knight. And that allowed me to get into the corporate arena, and corporate groups to start to hear about me. And from there, I got the little radio show, and the radio show got syndicated, and then book publishers heard about me and invited me to come and write books. And it all continued to grow, and all of that was because I got fired. But all of that, and the music, and the speaking, and the books, and the television and radio, I've always seen it as ministry. I just was always under the radar. So when people would say, "You know, I see you got a degree in theology. Are you a preacher?" I said, "Oh, no." They said, "Because, you know, a preacher can't come in here and speak to these school kids." I said, "No problem. I'm just a motivational speaker." But I'd get in there, and I'd talk to them about the carpenter from Galilee who changed my life. I talked to them about the fact that if you just want to change your life, you start to think different. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. And that as a man believes, so shall he be. And so I've learned over the years that my message is not the traditional ministry. It's a very unique ministry. That the job and my message is always to inspire people, to pour into them. The word is inspire. It's taken from the Greek word to breathe. So to inspire means to breathe anew. If you go to the hospital, Harold, and you went to visit an old friend and they were elderly, and you walked in and they said, Mr. Bell, that person expired this morning at 10 o'clock. You knew that their breath of life went out of them at 10 o'clock. But if you said somebody was inspired, the breath of life blew into them. They were inspired. You ever see a football team where one of the players goes down, maybe has I'll give you a great example, was Sean Taylor was killed in a robbery. The Redskins played at another level for those next few games because they were inspired. There was a breathe anew. So we want to breathe anew into people, breathe anew into their possibilities, into their futures, and breathe anew into their lives, that they can do whatever you dream and believe you can do. So this whole new part of my life now is just a matter of being inspired to do something bigger and greater and grander. And as I told the people that night I got licensed, I said, I've had success, but the rest and the best is yet to come.